Blessings, everybody. This is Dale. Thank you so much for joining with me today on the Word Podcast. We are in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And in the previous episode, we looked at verses 7 and 8, and he's talking about the glory. Spirit's releasing to Paul some understanding about this and putting together some things from the Old Covenant, the Old Testament perspective, and the New Testament, New Covenant, but also how the people are acting and reacting and what they're saying about him and to him. As Paul often does, he's dealing with layers of things, layers of information, addressing layers of concern. We're actually going to see this within the balance of this chapter right here in this subject matter, because he actually chases a pretty good rabbit right here related to this ministry of death and the ministry of the Spirit and the ministry of condemnation and glory and what all this means. He's got an overall thing that he's wanting to say to them, but he's giving teaching for them and for us to gain understanding about what had happened before. And does that still apply today? Are we still under the Old Covenant today? Are we still under the rules, regulations, etc., the Old Testament, or are things different? If things are different, do we need to give heed to anything that's in the Old Testament? That type of thing. And so we can glean and gain a lot of understanding by just watching how he, what he talks about, how he addresses it, and what his final conclusion is. So let's look at verse 7 and 8 again, then we'll keep pressing on. He says this, "But if the ministry of death in letters engraved on stones came with glory, so that the sons of Israel could not look intently at the face of Moses because of the glory of his face, fading as it was, how will the ministry of the Spirit fail to be even more with glory?" So we read out of Exodus in the previous episode, the account of what was going on here, and that they would literally see Moses' face glowing and shining when he was in the presence of God. He would come out of the presence of God. They would see him like that. He would speak forth the instructions, the commandments that the Lord had given him, and then he would put the veil back on. Not so much to cover the fact that it was shining, yes, that was part of it, but it was also to cover the fact that it was fading. It would gradually fade when he was away from the Lord. He'd go back to the Lord in his presence, and it would shine again. Verse 9, "For if the ministry of condemnation has glory, much more does the ministry of righteousness abound in glory." So Paul is saying, hey, the ministry of the law, the ministry of death, the ministry of condemnation, he calls it all these terms. He says it has glory. Okay, it had a glory. But now, how much more does the ministry of righteousness abound in glory? Verse 10, "For indeed, what had glory, in this case, has no glory because of the glory that surpasses it." So in other words, the glory of righteousness, the glory of the ministry of righteousness, the glory of the new covenant, the glory of the understanding that Messiah has come, so far surpasses the glory of the old covenant that it makes it look as if it has no glory. Now, the word glory is mentioned a lot in this passage, right? Well, it comes from the Greek word is doxa, and it literally means to esteem, okay? I love it when you have a definition that has the word in it. To render or to esteem glorious. To render glorious. What does glory mean? It means glory. No, it means to praise, to exalt, to celebrate, to magnify, to honor, okay? The splendor, all these things are involved with it. But the new is of such value that it surpasses the old and makes the old look like it has no glory. Verse 11, he continues, "For if that which fades away was with glory, much more that which remains is in glory." So he's talking about, okay, when Moses, you saw the glory of Moses' face, but it faded away over a period of time. There's actually a picture of foreshadowing what was going to happen with the old covenant. It's important. It's valuable, yes, but it was going to fade away. And that which remains, that which does not fade away, how much more glorious is that? So he starts to reach a point of conclusion here in verse 12. "Therefore," that's how I know it's a point of conclusion. "Therefore, having such a hope, we use great boldness in our speech. So Paul's talking about, why he's saying the things he said, how he's saying it, etc. Because I guarantee you, people were complaining about it. He actually addresses it somewhere else where he says, I know what y'all say, that I'm very, very bold in my letters, but when I come to you, that I'm sort of wishy-washy, okay? And I'm sort of milquetoast in the way that I come across. He says, do not make a mistake about that. If I need be, I will come in boldness, okay? Here he's saying, because we have this hope, what is the hope? The hope of the great glory that does not fade away. We use great boldness in our speech, verse 13, and are not like Moses, who used to put away a veil over his face, so that the sons of Israel would not look intently at the end of what was fading away. Well, there you go. We see what it is. That's what I was talking about a while ago, that they would look intently at what was fading away, and they go, wait, what's this? Why is this fading away? That kind of thing. No, he covered himself and went on. But there's something here about this. He says, because we have this great hope, we use great boldness in our speech. I tell you what, I don't think that we speak forth boldly enough as believers in the way that we should. And when we do speak forth boldly and take our stand, and et cetera, we do it in a way that we shouldn't. I actually had an example of that yesterday. And I think there's something to this because it has nothing to do with theological teaching, nothing to do with theological thinking, but it has everything to do with who we are as believers. Okay, with who we are as believers. And so a lot of y'all know I teach piano lessons, and I teach a lot of them online. And I have a student out of state, and he is an amazing young man. We're just getting to know each other. I haven't taught him that long. And just the things he can do it's just crazy. Now, it's an online kind of situation, so the dynamics are different, and you have to handle things differently. And it's never the same way twice. And a lot of times with this young man, it's like a challenge. And I have found myself in recent weeks in it that I am very bold, just what Paul said, great boldness in our speech. And I just tell him, I said, okay, here's the deal. This is the reason we are doing this way. I'm doing it like this and like this, like this. And then he'll get quiet on me. Well, I can't see his face. So I got that body language, and I see his hands and his keyboard and this kind of stuff. But I can feel him. Okay, I can feel him. I don't want to crush him, and I haven't crushed him. But I want to speak boldly. Excuse me. But sometimes you wonder, and I hope I'm doing this correctly. I get done with the lesson, and I get a communique from his dad. And his dad said he comes in there and says that he loves these lessons, and because I'm giving him hard stuff to do. See, it's a challenge, right? I'm getting hard stuff to do. And I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was along this line right here. And he says, he's a man, so I can't act stupid all the time. And I just love that, because my being bold with him and in a way that normally I wouldn't have said it. And if you heard it, you wouldn't have thought anything of it. Seriously, guys, you wouldn't have thought anything of it. But it was a boldness. And just the last couple of weeks, the way I'm having to address him, he's responded to it and say, hey, this is serious. This is, not a plaything. He's a man, so I can't act stupid. I'm going to try to do better. This is what Paul's doing. He said, I use boldness in my speech because we're not like Moses, okay? We're not like the ones that he was dealing with that veil. We have the very power and presence of God within us. Well, my time's up. I didn't get finished with that sentence right there, but you know what? We'll pick it up in the next episode. I will see y'all then. Goodbye.